Dude, I hate the intro. It feels so chuggy to me.
Because you have to be, it literally,
It's so...
live, laugh, cast.
Exactly.
You got nothing to prove. Nothing to prove.
Okay, welcome to the Nothing to Prove, Only to Share podcast. Today our guest is Zaq Baker. Thanks for being here, Zaq.
Yeah, absolutely. This will be fun, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Do you want to give us a brief intro, like who are you, where are you from? Are you local?
Sure. Yeah, very much so. I've lived in Minneapolis since I was 22, and I grew up in the suburbs right around here, so I've sort of just always been here.
Cool. I was curious because I know that you work with Abrianne and the Coins.
Oh, yeah.
And she's not
Yep.
local, is she?
She is. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
she
yeah.
is.
So we've been a band. I actually started playing with her in 2014, if you can believe that.
Damn.
So we both went to the same college. I was an English major. She's
I
a
see that
music
too.
major, which is one of the hardest majors at St. Olaf. A lot of music history and a lot of versatility. Like her final exam was to sing in like 4 languages or something. Super rigorous. But anyway, at the time, someone else was just like, hey, she's looking for a pianist for like a bar show. And I was like, sure. And we both didn't know our sensibilities were going to be like exactly the same. Just
Yeah.
like the theater thing, the pop thing, like all kind of rolled into one. So we've been playing together since then. And then she moved back to Atlanta, where she's from, after college.
Okay.
And then she came to Minneapolis just to do that band. It was like, we're really going to do this. We're going to make a career out of this thing. When we were all, I want to say 23.
Cool.
Yeah.
How did everybody get linked together? Like, how
Most
did
of
everyone
us
know
went
each
to college
Okay.
together.
St. Olaf.
I've known my twin brother my whole life.
other? Your twin?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
identical.
is it the bassist?
No, guitar actually.
I'm trying
Although
to
it's
think.
funny because all 3 of us have like dark hair, and
Yeah.
at times we have a similar affect.
I'm trying to... So
I think you would know if you saw.
Yeah.
Like we look like brothers. Most people don't. They like don't believe me if I
That's
say we're
crazy.
twins. Yeah.
So you guys grew up playing music?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Yep. I mean, piano, right? It's like I started whenever our parents had us take lessons. So I was probably 5, maybe 4. And I did everything by ear. And my teachers really hated that because they were like, why don't you do this sheet music? And I was like, why don't you just play it once and I'll play it back for you?
Damn.
And then in middle school, American Idiot happened. And I got way more into just picking out like Green Day by ear. And then they really hated that. And then a teacher, when I was in 7th grade, she was like, I don't think we should do this anymore. Like she dumped me.
No.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids quit stuff, and she was like, I don't think this is right, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And then I started playing in bands when I was in like 9th grade. And I was
Cool.
like, this is for me. This is what I always wanted, was to play like rock music.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what you did in 9th grade.
9th or maybe 10th. I think
Okay.
I was asked to be in a band in 9th grade, and we finally got like our crap together by sophomore year.
Cool.
So,
Love that.
Yeah.
So what other groups do you work with right now besides Abrianne and the
So,
Coins? I feel like
so,
I
so,
see your
so
name
many.
everywhere.
Yeah. Someone at a show recently was like, you're the busiest person in Minneapolis. And I was like, I don't know that that's true.
I swear, with every artist I know or hear of, somehow you seem to be connected.
Well, I'm a pretty social person,
Yeah.
which helps. I mean, my joke is like people keep me around just because
Yeah.
I'm like a good hang. But yeah, I've been playing in a ton of different bands for a handful of years. A couple of them are defunct now. Playing a Bob Dylan cover band
No
as of a
shit.
year ago, which is kind of fun. Historically, never really understood like the Bob thing. And so
Okay.
it was kind of a cool way to get into the fact that a lot of people really do interpret his catalog as poetry
Yeah.
with blues behind it. And it's fun as a keyboard player because I play piano probably 90% of the time. I play it 100% of the time in my band and in Abrianne and the Coins. So in this band, it's a lot of organ, piano. I want to say, yeah, we do like a clav kind of like funky thing for one song. So I think it's been good for my versatility. And that's just a good group of people. There's a nice age gap. A lot of people in that band are in their very early 20s, and the band leader's in his late 30s. So it's kind of fun being in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Playing a worship capacity. I'm a music director there, which has been really cool because
Cool.
I like leadership.
Yeah.
I like egalitarian band stuff, and I also like kind of being like, we have an assignment to complete. I'm going to kind of do a lot of the translating for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, while I'm doing that, I'm also playing piano. So that's kind of a fun role. Play with Nina Luna. She's awesome. Great
Yes.
singer.
I've heard of her.
Yeah, really easy to work with, and her records are really professionally made. So that's kind of fun because the music or the recordings are very synthy, and they're really well made. And then we do shows kind of a little bit like a bar band where we're translating what she does into like a place like 331 Club. There's no tracks or anything. So that is really cool. Playing Christian Wheeler's band. He's great. He's a very longtime friend and the closest thing I've had to a mentor. So it's also fun being like a support person in his band.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And probably others that I'm not remembering, if I'm being honest with you.
I just saw that you were doing some work with a dude that we met at the studio, Hillbilly.
Oh, yeah,
something?
John.
John. Do
John
you
Bear,
remember meeting
yeah,
John?
Hillbilly Chic. Hillbilly Chic.
The Polaroid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John is awesome. Yeah, we've become closer and closer friends. Gowns, their music, it's got a ton of sentiment that I agree with. So we've booked together because we do the like teenagey pop rock thing. It's like all these love-worn kind of like adolescent songs. And they just do the Strokes thing. And I love that because that's like my era. You know what I mean? It's like the Killers. We all love this stuff. So yeah, I just went to the studio to hang out with him, and he brought Snoop Dogg's brand of Prosecco, which was spectacular. We had some. He brought a Sylvia Plath book of poetry. He brought his Polaroids, and I love his singing. And it was really fun to be in an environment where he's laying down the tracks. Like he's in there, and we're all like a little bit nervous, and he's got his acoustic guitar, and it was like we're actually making the art.
Yeah.
And I'm just here to hang out because people were like, "Are you doing anything?" And I was like, he just wanted me to be here. And then, of course, I ended up playing keys on a bunch of the track. But yeah, Hillbilly Chic is the artist name, so look out for that. But yeah, John, it's been fun getting to know each other a lot better as friends over the past probably year.
Yeah.
Just a good guy.
That's awesome.
Really creative spirit, you know.
Cool. Speaking of your own sound, did you immediately know like what genre you were kind of going for in your own work, or was it kind of a process there to figure out what you wanted?
I think for everybody, it's a process. I feel like it has to be iterative. So I started becoming like a serious songwriter in 2017. So in the scheme of things, not that long ago, but then to me, some of the songs feel like, wow, I was a younger me when I wrote that. But yeah, I mean, originally I had a total like top 40 mindset. Like I was like, I'm going to get good at Logic somehow, and I'm going to actually make all the tracks myself. I bought a drum set and kind of taught myself drums, which was enjoyable because for me, translating from piano to drums was very like, I can do this.
Cool.
I wasn't very good, but the translation was easy. So that was the original genesis. And then the more writing I did, the more I was just like, this feels like a piano band. And I think something I like about that is there's a uniqueness to it. I mean, someone tells me the Ben Folds thing like every other show, and that's fine because he's a total idol. No question. I think too, you know, with my own music, I've matured about this, but I can definitely be pretty obsessive compulsive about just kind of having creative control. And I think because of how the piano is as an instrument, it works really well to have me doing that. Just range alone, the fact that it's a percussive instrument. So I think having my songwriting be done through the piano, not just written at it, was kind of like, this makes sense. This is what it wants to be. And now, of course, it's even more, it gets more Broadway, like every song I write. So it's like, well, someone should be playing a piano, you know? It would be a little silly not to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How did your group, your solo, like Zaq Baker group come together?
The original drummer referred Andy, who is now one of my closest friends, for bass guitar. And Andy is a guitarist. And he was like, I happen to not be playing in any bands right now. I'd really like to be in one. So we'd never met. And from the first rehearsal, it was like, okay, we're going to be like pals, you know? So we'd walk through all these like, okay, it's A major, and then it's E over G sharp, and then it's like all this stuff. And it would get very mechanical. And then we'd be like, let's go drinking, you know? And we got to know each other like very quickly. And I always think that's fun in a friendship to be like, we've got all this common ground. So he, on the Gantt chart of people that have been playing with me, is like the one person who's been in the band the longest.
Love.
There's creative reasons. I think people come and go. I think at times there are obviously geographic reasons. I mean, like most of us, everybody plays in like 5 or 6 bands.
Yeah.
So there's a point at which they say, it kind of doesn't make sense for me to be doing all this learning, all this rehearsing, all these gigs when I have like my own thing. And I think too, like, because we've all grown up with so many TV and movies, people assume there's going to be like acrimony or something. It's like, I'm quitting. And it's like, that's good. You should do your thing.
Yeah.
I have the utmost respect for that. So yeah, that's how that band came together originally. And then there's always like a cast of characters, you know?
Right on. I love that.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about your writing process? And you just came out with your EP very
Yeah,
recently.
EP came out a week ago. It's called Solarbaby. Check it out to all
Yeah.
those listening and
Nice
watching.
plug. Nice plug.
Yeah, gotta do. Well, you brought it up, so I'm just driving it home.
Well, you could talk about that specifically, like how that all came together.
Sure. Yeah, I think what was fun about Solarbaby is it's a departure not just sonically, but creative process-wise from what I typically do. So, my normal process would be I wrote a song, I obsessed over the way the lyrics and all the chords were constructed, and then I basically dictated it to a band and was like, this is exactly what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. We make a few edits as a group, but it's generally like, I want it this way, and we're going to do it this way. And Solarbaby, my friend Tommy called me December 2021 and was like, in his exact words, he was like, I want to take your songs and fuck them up. I was like, that sounds fun. Because he was like, I know what your catalog sounds like, but you're always posting about like Echo and the Bunnymen and the Cure and this whole era. Like you love Talking Heads more than anything. So he was like, why don't we just make a record like that? It'll be fun. And I was like, great. And he was like, one rule, no piano. And I was like, let's go. Like, let's make something different.
Yeah.
So we took one of my songs out of the vault, and then we went in and he made most of the instrumental arrangements. So he plays drums, guitar, bass guitar, did a little drum sampling, did a few guitar overdubs, and then I played all the synthesizers on it. And it was so romantic because we'd go down into his basement room and he just had like vintage synthesizers, and we would just be like, play with all the patches and be like, this one sounds good, sounds like M83. And then I would just like do a thing.
Cool.
And we would dub like a ton of synthesizers. And then I wrote two of the songs kind of on the fly, which I also liked doing. Mm-hmm. It was sort of on assignment. Like, imagine you're an 80s guy with a deep voice and you're like really in love with this girl. You want to go driving around in a car with them.
Yeah.
And then you just write a simple pop song about it. And I like doing that kind of assignment-based stuff. I think I do well with like homework,
Cool.
Let's play a character. So that record, yeah, when you ask about the process, it was fun.
Sweet.
And it also had a flavor of like, hey, it's Saturday morning. Do you want to just come over and we'll like lay down some synths? And that is a much more enjoyable way to make an album than the kind of prescriptive, like, we have 3 hours to lay down drums and it's a little bit stressful,
Yeah. In general, did you give yourself like a deadline, like once you started the project? No.
No,
It
and that was
came when it came.
Yeah, and I think that was one of our like verbal motifs. Like when we were having fun and we went out to drink coffee, we'd kind of look at each other and shrug and be like, you're not signed to a label. Like we're here to have a good time.
Yeah.
And that helps. And we also made it pretty quickly, but there wasn't any of that like, I need to release this thing so I can release this thing. And I always have a ton of stuff in the hopper, but that helped. No deadline.
Right on.
It was almost like a side project, but it's like my music, which I thought was also a really fun angle.
Totally.
And we filmed an entire music video last night. We got together and in like an hour and a half.
Night?
Yeah. He was like, what are you up to? And I was like, let's go do something fun.
Nothing.
Yeah. So we just got a ton of different footage and then like we're making the video right now. So,
Damn,
yeah.
that's so fun. That's
Yeah.
so fun. I think so right now I'm definitely a singer, but I'm like,
You're a great singer, by the way.
Thank
That
you.
record, so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The shaky one. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm a big time wannabe songwriter. I've always been a writer, but never in the sense that I've like wanted to share it with people. And I think now I'm at a point where I'm so sick of singing covers. And I'm having a hard time with like rushing right now. Like I want so bad to just write something and just put it out so that I have something out. And I'm trying to like just chill and just be okay with whatever flows when it does, but also trying to make myself work too. You know what I mean? Like it's not always that I can't just like, I've never had like, I just sit down and I write a whole song. Like if I'm going to finish a song, I have to decide, like I have to make myself. It's not something that flows right now. You know?
I believe though in what you're saying. I think there's a lot of flow with artistic process, but for me, so much of it is that self-management where you are like, I have to finish this thing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have a bridge, maybe that's okay. But in general, it's like, let's sit down and write a bridge. And maybe it's not that good. And then we'll edit it,
Yeah.
It's funny what you say about covers too, because the older I get, the more I feel like I did things in reverse order, which is working for me.
Yeah.
But everybody from local acts to like literally the Beatles, like they did their whole start with just like, we're only going to cover music. And then once they got schooled in that, it was like, now I can write something.
Yeah.
And I was always just like, we're going to make original music and we're going to get famous like really fast and like this and that. And then now I'm playing in cover bands because I feel like I've been schooled enough just from like being in bands a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny. Like, I mean, there's a million pathways to get to where we
Yeah,
are.
definitely.
You know?
I think this could be a good segue to the question I'm going to ask every guest is, how do you define success?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I think you had sent that to me before to kind of noodle on. And unsurprisingly, I've already spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah.
I think conventional metrics, right? People would say it's probably two things. Doing music full time financially, right? Because we live in America. We live in a weird capitalist society where even when you make stuff from your heart, you have to monetize it. So I think a lot of people would say that. I don't think that's my like number one thing. And I think the second one would be fans. Like I would say you're successful if a lot of people that don't know you personally are like, your music had an impact on me.
Yeah.
So those are two things that I think are important, but I think this answer is a little bit Disney, but the older I get, the more I'm like, if you can be yourself in the capacity of being a practitioner in the arts, you've kind of made it. And I think there was a period in 2019 where a lot of my insecurities, they didn't dissipate, but there was kind of like a, wait, maybe the person I am actually is like working for the practice of songwriting and being on stage. And then I was like, this is who I was supposed to be all this time. I think there was a period before that where there just is a lot of like, I don't know how to do X, Y, Z. Other people carry themselves in this certain way and I'm not that. And so that feels like unsuccessfulness. And on a good day now, I'm kind of like, maybe that is success. I can literally be me and work really, really, really freaking hard. And that feels like success.
Yeah.
And it feels sustainable. Because I think when you're chasing fame, there was a younger me that was like, and other people around me were like, I don't think you can do this with this intensity forever. So you should be careful. And I think now I'm kind of like, if I live the way I'm living, I could do this till I drop dead. You know? Maybe that's what success is.
Word. I love that. Yeah, I think I've been having a lot of conversations lately about making stuff just to make money. And for me, that can't be what it's about. I've turned hobbies or passions into work before music, and it has just turned into burnout and sadness and hatred for whatever the thing was. And so I'm trying to be so mindful about music and trying to work it out in a way that I'm still going to love it in the end, whether I'm making money, whether I'm not, you know.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. I mean, I think there's a place for both, right? I work with a ton of people where music is their source of income, and that is extremely important. And that means taking gigs that you don't feel super invested in. When I've done that, it's made me like super cranky, you know, and unhappy and not myself. And there's a place for that too, to say I'm going to show up in a place where I don't necessarily fit in. You might make $7 at a bar show playing songs you don't like, but I think there is a place for that sacrifice. I think it would be a little bratty for me to be like, I can only do stuff that I really want to do.
I know. Yeah, I'm also on that right now. I'm just now working with other people, which is so cool because I haven't really taken singing seriously ever.
Which is surprising based on your records.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so not always loving what I'm doing or loving the music or whatever, but doing it because it pays $7. Is that right?
I know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I think there's obviously benefits too, like working with other people, and it's cool to make any dollar amount with my voice. Like that's so magical, but I don't know where the line is.
It's a good, and I think too, we want validation, or at least I really do.
Me
it's
too.
like I make stuff. There's so many different granules that go into that, but it's always so that someone out there can relate to it, right? You're trying to make a record good so that some stranger hears it and they're like, this actually meant something to me.
Yeah.
But that validation is difficult to quantify, and I think that's part of why when you say, how do you define success? It's like most people are like, it's hard because you can't put a number on like someone texted you and they're like, I actually like shed a tear because I felt like I was the person you were singing about. And that is what success is, but it's not like there was this exact amount of like heart-shaped symbols that there's emojis, I guess, but it's like how do you quantify that?
How can we blend?
The lip trills. That's what we should be doing in the car on the way here. I didn't actually do it.
Yeah,
I
vocal
would do
warm-ups.
that,
Do
but
you
I
do
didn't.
vocal warm-ups? That's a good question.
You know, so Maria actually was my vocal coach for a good
Oh,
chunk of my
whoa.
20s, which, by the way, she's amazing at that.
Cool.
So there was a period where when I was making records and I was quite like serious about it. I'm much less disciplined now.
Mm-hmm.
I think most singers, right? We kind of go ebb and flow with that stuff. Now I'm doing them again just because I am. I was like,
Yeah.
you know what, Zach? It's silly to not do your trills.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Got to do the trills.
Yeah.
Do you do the same thing every time? Mix it up? Do you have a
Honestly,
routine?
half the time I'm just setting up my keyboard and I just do a lot of trills for those 2 minutes. And that is not good vocal warm up, but it's better
something,
than nothing,
yeah.
some would say.
Yeah, I have never. I'm so ashamed to admit it. I hardly ever do a vocal warm up, and I just feel like there's never a convenient time to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
there's definitely that.
It's never like, it just feels like not right. There's
Yeah.
never a right time. But sometimes I do. I'll do it maybe before a rehearsal or something if I know it's going to be a super long session or something like that. But I'm so excited for a performance that I like forget that I even have a voice.
All of us.
You know what I mean? Like I
Yep.
don't even think about anything like that before performance, but I'm trying to be better.
Yeah. I agree with that. Well, and for me too, perhaps this is obvious, but I've never thought of myself as a singer. I've kind of had to coach myself into that mindset, right? Because my thing is definitely like, I write the stuff.
Yeah.
And there was very early in my career, I was like, I should probably just give this to other people to sing, which I'm now actually coming back around to. That's a whole other conversation. But the songs have so much like personality that I was like, I should probably be the one singing them. And so then I tried to make myself into a good singer.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, like, for example, it's like you are a singer. And now you're like, I'm a little weary of the cover thing. I'd rather do my own thing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another case of that kind of like reverse process.
Totally. Yeah, I think kind of like you saying that you don't know that you're a singer. I feel like for a long time and still now, I feel like I can't call myself a musician. And that's something I've been struggling with and trying to work on.
Because why?
And
just because it's hard to call ourselves like the real thing. Yeah.
And I don't, and it's like a lot of, it's very similar to the question of how, like, what is success? Like, what is a musician?
Yeah.
You know, I feel a little uneducated. I do, like, I think I put a lot of work into like how my voice sounds, but as far as like technical stuff, like theory stuff, I can't really play an instrument.
Theory schmeary is something you'll often hear me say.
Yeah?
I'm still learning like what stuff is called. You know what I mean? People are like, this is add major 7. And I'm like, oh, I've been doing that since I was in high school, but it's really helpful to be able to communicate it
Call it something,
to
yeah.
somebody. You know?
Interesting.
But at least nowadays you can go on YouTube and some guy's like 10-minute tutorial on nomenclature and it's like tight. Thank you.
Tight.
Yeah, because at least in my case, many people are like, oh, you play piano. The way you do it, you probably grew up playing jazz. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I grew up playing Green Day. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's funny because then people expect you to be able to translate in certain ways. And that's part of why I had to learn that stuff relatively recently, you know?
Cool. Okay. Right on. Do you have a favorite musician or like somebody who you're most inspired by?
Yes, the two are Billy Joel and Taylor Swift.
Cool.
Pretty much without question.
Say more.
Yeah, I have a couple other favorites. I mean, I think Billy Joel, we could have like many discussions just about him. Let's go into maybe 2 segments with that. I think one, this is so important. He is just like what was on in our minivan when I was a little kid. And so I think my first instances of self-ear training were literally like, I'm 7, we're on a road trip, and I'm listening to Allentown. And like in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is what he's doing, like going up and down with the chords. So that cannot be extricated from just like what I think music is and how it works.
Yeah.
And there's the emotional value where it's like my mom and my dad really agreed that Billy Joel is like amazing. So we had like mixed CDs, and I don't think you can ever undo something like that where it's like, this is what my parents listened to.
Yeah.
This is like part of who I am. So there's that. And then as an adult, like this got me through, like we all have that dark time of COVID where we had like our weird obsessions. And I went through his whole catalog, and there's just so much musically that works mechanically. Like he thinks of himself as a classical composer, and then he adds lyrics that are like Uptown Girl. But
Yeah.
the way that this stuff like literally moves up and down is so elegant, and I think that can be a rarity just in general, I think it takes a lot of perfectionism. And then the lyrics to me they're just like the best. There's people I know that don't claim to know anything about music, but they love that guy because they're like, these stories in these songs are just so good. His imagination and his ability to articulate the story he's trying to tell is just incredible. So he's an idol. And I love when songwriters that don't play piano at all are like Billy Joel, one of my number ones. And I'm like, now we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, because as a piano player, it's somewhat obvious to be like him,
Right.
Elton John, Sarah Bareilles, Regina Spektor. These are my piano people. And they're all my favorites. But it's nice when someone who like only plays guitar is like, that guy, that's the language I speak.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
I also have some like childhood ties to Billy Joel, but
Oh,
I know
really?
what you're saying a lot about the artists that our parents listen to are just like embedded in us.
Do you have like specifics?
For me, and I feel like I am a little ashamed, but it's like Kelly Clarkson, Pink, Avril Lavigne, like
Huge.
Those
huge.
all those artists made me a singer.
Yeah. Kelly Clarkson, I mean, Breakaway, that's like a perfect record.
Yeah.
It's like literally, I have that CD in my car. People like make fun of me and I'm like, have you heard it before? Like some of her songs are a very rare example where I will cry because it's so well written. And to me, that's like very noble.
Yeah.
The songs are made so well that I'm like, someone actually did that. That's what makes me like feel everything.
Yeah.
And Avril Lavigne, Skater Boy, obviously,
Duh.
that came on in a bar the other night and people were like being snotty about it.
Are
They're
you
like,
kidding?
why are people singing along to this? And I'm like, the song has multiple characters. It's told from a third person perspective and moves to the first person at the end. It's hilarious. And there's good key changes. Like, can you write a song better than that?
For real.
No one in that bar can write a song better than that.
If there's one Avril song we can respect, it's got to be Skater Boy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a handful of really good
Well, yeah.
ones, but I was just like, this is a total, it's a composition, both lyrically
Yeah.
and musically. And it's hilarious. It's a
It
great
is.
story.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And in fourth grade, we were like, she was, you know, it's just
yes. I actually
special.
had a CD player with like those cheap ass headphones.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
remember dancing on my bed, like jumping on my bed, listening to that specific CD, Skater Boy.
Yeah, it's
I don't
classic.
know if that's what the record
I
is
think it's called Let Go.
Let Go.
Yeah, and
Bangers.
it's very 2002 because she's got like really straight blonde hair and then like really baggy, like kind of like cargo pants, like Hot Topic, like all black, everything.
Yes.
She's just wearing like a sweatshirt, you know? I love it.
Speaking of the song Breakaway, that was the first song that I ever sang on a stage. I think I was like 12. I actually had such bad stage fright that I didn't sing all the words. Like I was frozen.
Kind of like bowed out for part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what or like when that shifted because now I'm very comfortable. I mean, it's been a long time, but I was so nervous when I first started. Have you ever had stage fright or do you like get nervous before shows?
I do not get nervous before shows anymore. I kind of have a private joke where I get like a little bit clerically nervous. Like a lot of gigs,
Yeah.
there's always that like, that I hope I remember like the bridge to that song, like literally just the chords. Like it's like, Zach, don't F this up. But I think that's a different kind of nervousness.
Yeah.
And one of my other private jokes is like, I get kind of crabby if I'm like not on stage. Like if long enough goes by, I'm like, I need to go out and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, with my music, of course, like the first couple shows, I mean, my songs are so verbal too. I was like, I'm going to forget the words. I'm going to look stupid. Like I'm not a good singer. You know, there's all that insecurity. Grateful to say that's gone away.
Good.
And that's just from doing it a lot. I don't think there's really any other
Yeah.
reason.
I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I used to sing the national anthem for like sporting events in high school, and I one time was so nervous for one of them, and I feel like I screwed it up, and I like cried after. It was a whole thing. People around me were like, "It was fine, it was good, whatever," and I think I realized that when I'm nervous, it just like it makes it not fun anymore, and then it's like, what's it for? And I think maybe that idea has helped me, but yeah. It just has gone away too, and thank God. I'm
Yeah.
a better performer for it, for sure.
I get vicariously nervous when someone does the national anthem because I think it's like,
Yeah.
it feels like weirdly important. I also just think because it's a cappella to me, that's very freaky, right? Like with my shows, I don't really, I mean, I do like performing solo, but when there's drums, I'm just like, everybody knows what's going on. We're like a train and it's like, welcome, get on the train. Like, here we go. And I think when I'm imagining being solo singing and it just feels like, I wish I had my buddies like
Yeah.
with me, And it's also like, I would love to get into this topic, but it is just fun. When you are in a band, it is just literally fun. And I think there was a big chunk of my 20s when music wasn't super fun because I just like wanted it so badly. And that took a lot of the joy out of just like dialing back and saying, I'm so lucky. I do the thing that I love and hopefully understand the most with my friends.
Yeah.
That's how I'm spending my youth. Like, let's try to practice gratitude for that.
Totally.
And it also just makes the music better. So it's a whole recursive thing where you're like, well, you want to be good, you need to enjoy it because
Yeah.
you're probably going to be doing this for a long time.
Absolutely.
Have
you ever worked with somebody that you didn't vibe with musically or just like personality wise?
Yeah, I mean, I've just worked with like so many people. It's like obviously not everybody is your best friend.
How do you handle that?
I think I handle it well. I'm trying to think. Obviously, I'm not going to name the person. I'm trying to think of like an example and then be like, how did I get through that? But I think some of it is I do have in certain roles, I have like a practitioner's mindset, right? And it's like, okay, we're rehearsing from 6 to 8. We need to get these 3 songs done. And I kind of keep my head down and do that. And if someone's being contentious or annoying or like, I mean, some people are just mean. There are people that are just unkind. And then I kind of keep my head down and I say, they probably don't see the world the same way that I do. And I'm going to try not to let it get under my skin. And I think too, I can think of 2 times where someone much older than me and much meaner than me was pretty bluntly unkind about the way I was playing in a rehearsal. And I remember being like, in my mind, like livid. I was like, I can't believe they called me out in front of other people. First of all, that's just bad leadership. But then I was kind of like, okay. And then I was driving home, and even by then I was like, okay, they were a jerk, but I do need to think about dynamics. So I really wish they didn't do it that way, but let's try and be constructive about what they said.
Yeah.
And there is, hopefully there's like maturity in that. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great take.
I think I've used the word insecurity a couple times in this discussion, but all the artists I really admire, it's hard to imagine them being like, I'm going to be mean to you. It's like most of those people know that they kind of get it, which means they don't have like a weird need to sort of prove things by being really uptight. There's like a welcome to the party. I like to think I'm good at this. I'm not going to be a jerk about it. That's what I imagine. Perhaps it's not true. There are many famous jerks, but in my mind, I'm like someone who really gets it is probably going to exercise kindness.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe I'm just willing that into the universe.
Maybe you are.
It's really nice to imagine, isn't it?
It is. Well, do you have any plans right now? I know you just released the EP, but do you have anything coming up? Any projects that you're working on now?
Yep, always. Yep. With my inner circle, I'm always like Zach's big thing, because there's always a big one. So I have 3 very big things that I'm doing. Can I tell you about them?
Yes.
Okay, so one, this is a big deal for me. This is childhood dream. I started writing a novel just over a year ago. I will have trouble articulating like how arduous that is, because at first you're like, you just write a book and you put the words in the thing, and it takes an enormous amount of like pre-sculpting, actual writing, rewriting the whole thing that you just wrote, and then like editing it so much to get the actual heart to come out. So that was December 2021.
Okay.
And I worked on it all winter, last winter, a year ago, obsessively. And I think this kind of comes back to what we were talking about, where it was so obsessive that it became unpleasant. And that's when I was kind of like, let's take a break. Let's write some shorter pieces. Let's also just read more,
Yeah.
And then I came back to it this summer, rewrote the whole thing, finished it in October, gave it to 3 people, and they gave me like constructive feedback, not like a this sucks, but like I asked them just to be like, tell me what's not working for you, what's not like realistic was a word a lot of people came back to. And then I really finished it in January. And I've been trying to get an agent since October.
Oh my
so
gosh.
if you know anything about literary agents,
I wish I did.
if you think the music business is tough, literally literature is harder. It's harder than this thing that we do.
Wow.
But that's my big, like, I have a finished book and I'm like, please somebody take it. Like I think it's pretty good.
Can you tell us what it's like about, or is it a secret?
No, I can tell. For a while it was secret,
Okay.
but part of that is because you rewrite stuff.
Yeah.
So there's two main narratives, and the first one is about this girl named May who's 15. She's a singer, but she's very reluctant. Like, she has enormous amounts of natural talent and has that kind of parental pressure to be really good, and she's like, I don't think this is what I want. So that narrative kind of follows her and some of her parental problems. And then there's another guy who's a first-generation immigrant from India named Ajay, who's stuck in a corporate job and is kind of wrestling with that. Like, on the one hand, ambition seems like a really great thing. I should get my, like, I'm going to be the senior manager of the vice president. Like, he's given all these kind of options. And then on the other side, that is obviously making him very stifled and unhappy and pressured. And their narratives come close to one another. I won't say how it ends, but
Yeah, please don't.
It kind of, I'm happy with the perspective because the book takes two different perspectives, and I think that's a pretty bold thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you hear any agents that are like, hey, we don't get enough emails, because it's kind of miserable trying to query.
Yeah.
I mean, I've reached out to like at least 200 people.
Whoa, really?
I
Do
mean, why
people
not?
Respond to you?
Yes, they give me
And they
very,
just tell you
very
no?
nice rejections, and they say,
Damn.
I'm sure what you're doing will work for somebody else, but it's okay. I mean, it's
That's part of it.
Yeah, and the publishing industry's always been like that, and now it's 2020, whatever year it is, 3. So I've been looking into self-publishing, which is even more demoralizing. The Wikipedia article, I was sending this to people, because it was so obviously like patched together with like bad opinions, but it was like 70% of self-published fiction is so bad it is unreadable. And I was like, who was polled for that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it wasn't like a real statistic, and I was kind of giggling, and I was like, okay, my thing isn't unreadable.
Yeah.
It just, I need somebody to bite on it. So,
Word. Okay, what else?
so that's a big thing. My other giant, laughably big project, I've been working on a musical since November.
Gosh, so fun.
Yeah, and this is one of my many recurring jokes, but I was in a funny way like tired of people telling me that after
like
every
there's
show.
a
Is there like bugs in here?
I think it's a gnat.
Oh, we'll see
Okay,
if it
sorry.
comes this way. No, you're good. So after every one of my shows, someone's like, do you know what you should do? You should really write a musical. Because all my sensibilities are so like Disney. And then all the lyrics are like, this is a story. It's got a beginning. And it's like they have characters and stuff.
Yeah.
So I chipped away at that over COVID, and I was way too depressed and too alone to have it have like a sense of humor or accessibility. It was kind of like song by song, like very like painfully serious, and I was just alone a lot. And so after my music video release at the Ice House in November, 2 of my friends from college who I greatly admire as actors had the same comment, and they were like, you should really write one. And I was like, why don't you guys write one with me? And this is my favorite type of spirit, where it's the kind of thing people say and then they're like, yeah, we should like totally get coffee. And I was like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
How about next Saturday? And we pulled out our phones and we like booked
Nice.
time to do it. So we've been meeting at least once a week, often twice.
Cool.
And plotting, which I love that it's really called that. That's like where you actually map out like, here's what happens.
That's awesome.
So it's very manic. There's like 3 giant pieces of poster board with like character maps, act 1, act 2, like what happens to these people. So we're getting together again Saturday, and I have written, I think 6 songs alone, and then we wrote 2 songs together, all of which, it's just fun. It's fun. And it's perfect doing it with a group, because if I did it alone, I just don't think I would enjoy it. I think it would turn out okay, but it would just be like a slog. And this is like, what if we did this? What if we did this? Like,
So
Zach,
much
why
more
don't you go
fun
write
to-
this and like bring it to life?
Yeah.
So this is the project I sort of like needed.
Cool.
So we're going to try, if our schedule goes accordingly, we'll be able to actually start working with singers, hopefully by March or April, but we
Cool.
actually have to write it first.
Yeah.
But we've written a lot of it. We have
Cool.
dialogue, and like I say, I think we have 8 songs written.
Wow, that's so fun, and it's so much more fun to collaborate.
Yes. And I just needed that. I think that's the only way to get it done.
Your third thing.
Yeah, so then another musical theater thing, this popped into my head less than a week ago, was to take some of the songs from the vault that never, like my songwriting vault that never fit into anything, and then write some other show tunes that don't fit into the musical, and then record like a little cabaret. So it'll be like maybe a whole album, maybe an EP of just theater songs, where I just hire other people to sing them, and then make a record that's like, hey, I made this, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to call it Zach's Little Cabaret, but we'll see what I end up calling it. If you want to sing on it, you are quite welcome to.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, because I hit up 3 people that I really admire as singers that are friends of mine, and I was like, I would love for you to sing this. And all 3 of them, of course, were emphatically like, what a fun project.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you should do one. That would be fun.
I would love to. That'd be awesome.
Let's do it.
Do you have any like philosophies on making goals and then actually doing the thing?
Yeah, I just actually do the things. That's
no like goal setting tips or tricks.
Well, I'm kind of like an insane person.
Yeah, you seem very organized to me.
People always say that, which is funny because on the way here, I was like, guaranteed I'm going to get lost. You know what I mean? Like, guarantee I'm going to forget my car keys by the time I get out to the garage. And I'm very, very, very organized with like my art. But I think like most people, there's a sprawl, right? I have 3 different handwritten notebooks, which to me is not organized. That's more like manic. And it's like, okay, here's what happened in therapy today. That's a page. Yep. Here's what I want to talk about in this podcast. And it's like, yeah, and I wrote my book by hand, like, which that's like a crazy thing to do.
That really is.
You know, and obviously the editing happened in Google Docs.
Yeah,
but,
thank God.
There's always a sprawl, right? Or you're laying in bed and you're trying to sleep and suddenly you're like, I gotta do this. And you just put it in your phone notepad. So I think for all of us where inspiration speaks to us from something else, half the thing about being an artist is wrangling that and being like, I need to try. Like, you're trying to gather all this like awesome stuff. So anyway, with goal setting, I know I'm kind of nutty, but usually if I say I'm gonna do something, I just like literally do it.
I love
do you know
that
what I mean?
you.
Like,
what's your zodiac sign?
Leo. I'm end of July, so I'm right at. When's your birthday?
August 8th.
Nice.
I would not
should
have
do a joint birthday party. I'm about to turn 30. Like, let's go.
I'm about to turn 24.
Nice. Yeah, we should do it then.
I would love that.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was thinking more. Are you into astrology at all?
Not
That's
particularly.
Okay. You don't have to say yes.
Yeah, it's a knowledge.
I really was pissed that I brought this up. I was thinking more of like an earth sign because you're so organized. But I respect a Leo, big time.
I think I'm put together, which is different than being organized.
Leos
I'm very organized with my art, but in all other things, you know what I mean? It's like no good.
Okay, we're gonna flow out because it's getting to be time. Do you have a favorite show that you ever went to, or a favorite show that you ever played, or just like a favorite record?
Yeah. It's funny. Favorite show, I mean, cliched though it may be, I had the privilege of seeing Paul McCartney in 2016, which was like, oh my God. The way that time passed during his performance is different than any other time in my life, where it literally felt like 2 minutes.
Wow.
And he's playing like the songbook, like stuff everybody loves.
Oh, man.
And it just, I couldn't believe that it happened so fast. I think that is the best concert experience that I have had. I'm trying to think of another one that was like totally standout. I mean, the sheer amount of local acts here that are just incredible. I mean, I've had many, 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 many great experiences there. As far as a record, I mean, like most of us, I just inhale music hours and hours and hours a day. I'm trying to think of like a favorite, because I don't often repeat stuff a ton.
Okay.
Like, I'm just going to listen to this a lot of times repeatedly. I'm going to think of a great one driving home. You know what I mean? And be like, that was the right answer. I mean, I think the Beths are a great example of a band that has 3 rock records that are just great. Those are like, if I'm unsure what I feel like listening to, if I put on those records, I'm like, these are awesome. Beths are just awesome. Maybe that's my...
Cool.
Today, that's my answer, right? Tomorrow,
Yeah.
It'll be some
They can
80s
change
thing
your
or
life.
90s thing. And, you know.
Cool. Okay, well, before we say goodbye, do you want to plug anything? Shows coming up?
Oh, yeah, February 10th.
February 10th.
Zach Baker Band is playing with Johnny Sincerely, who is awesome.
Where at?
331.
Oh my God.
Classic.
Fun. Sorry, speaking of, I think that I saw you at 331 one time, and I thought it was you, but I didn't say just in case it wasn't. It was that show that we went to. It was at 331 like on a weekend, and it was the
I'm
band
like
that
often there, so.
The band that...
It was Admiral Fox.
Yeah.
Were you there?
I was there.
We made eye contact.
Oh.
And I thought...
You should have said hi.
think
I
that's
feel like
Zach,
I
but
didn't put that
know.
together. Yeah. I love Admiral Fox. There's a plug. I love, as
Cool.
people, so kind-hearted, and the
Yeah.
songwriting is great. And then I kind of make fun of them because, like, doing Radiohead is so hard, and they
Yeah.
actually kind of pull it off. And I'm like, Tom York could never do this. You know, it's so good. But love those guys. Yeah, I
Cool.
was definitely there for that.
Right on.
Yeah.
I don't often go on the weekends. I'm there every Monday though, if you're interested.
Yeah,
In Matt Arthur Contraption.
I love Mondays. Mondays are like the perfect hangout night because nobody books anything.
For real.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, so February 10th, you're playing a show. Is there a show that you're going to soon that's not your own?
Attending? Oh yeah. I mean, I try to do that as often as I can. I want to go to the green room opening, but I'm getting my wisdom teeth out tomorrow morning, which
No.
I'm very nervous about. So I want to go to the soft opening, but I might like look like a chipmunk and have like gauze in my mouth and be like, I could only eat soup, you know. So I might not be like presentable,
Yeah.
you know, for that. But yeah, I pretty much always put friend shows on my calendar, and I do my absolute darndest to go. And it's hard for us because our time is so limited,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
But yeah, that's the show that I am super keen on attending.
Cool. Right on.
Yeah.
Anything else to plug?
I mean, the EP is brand new, so
Yes.
I can't really stress that enough. And we keep saying fun, but it's fun. It's different. There's no self-seriousness about it, and it's nostalgic. So listen to Solarbaby, and then we're going to drop a music video like really soon.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for being
Yeah, and
here.
look out
This
for
was
my
great.
freaking book that I wrote.
Yes.
Like, buy my book like when it comes out. God knows when that'll happen.
We'll find you a publisher.
Okay.
It's on my to-do list now.
It's your problem now. You have to do it. Thank
Okay.
you
Yes,
for having me.
thank
This has been
you.
really fun. I just like to talk. We're just going to end up talking after the interview.